Welcome, everybody, to the Alive with Courage podcast. We've got Evan Marks joining us today. Evan is a legend in the San Juan Capistrano area. Evan runs the Ecology Center, which sounds like it's been up and running for the last 18 or so years, since 2008. And it is, if you haven't been, it's one of the most incredible experiences in Southern California. You just like, how does an experience like this actually exist here? It is a community hub, a 28-acre regenerative farm, and people come to have ecological experiences here. Like, it's a full experiential space, and it seems like every month they're birthing new experiences for people to experience what it's like to live close to the land, know where your food comes from, and do it in community. And so, Evan, super pumped to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Wow, thanks, Seth, for the opportunity.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Uh, Yeah, I'd love to just hear a bit about just your origin story, where you grew up, and where did some of these seeds take root for what you created, you and your team have created with the Ecology Center?
yeah, for sure. Thanks for that introduction. We think of ourselves as experienced designers. Um,
Mm.
we like to say form affects state. So
Huh.
we, as designers, we're creating the context for magic is really what we're aspiring to be. And so, I guess taking that, so how did we get here? I like to think that we're a sum of all the things that we've paid attention to. Right, and that's where our attention units are important to us, which is to be mindful and conscious of our energies and where we direct those. And so my origin story started in Newport Beach as a surfer, and it took me all over the world. And that was what I was paying attention to, um, was two things, which is culture and ecology.
Mm.
And I didn't learn that awareness when I was a teenager per se, but the opening of the door started when I was picking up trash as a surfer at 54th Street. And and I had some experiences as a teenager that also helped shift my worldview, and my belief system, which in general the paradigm, the common paradigm is the aspiration to be the best in the world. And as a competitive surfer, as all of these things, as someone from Orange County, like it's easy to allow those energies to seep in. And I had some realizations and moments in my life from an early age, whether it's picking up trash or just having an extraordinary experience, which was to be the best for the world. And so that seed planted as a teenager was, well, what does that really mean? What is my gift? What is my magic? And how can I put that to purpose so that I could
Mm.
live into that expression? And so that was kind of a common thread that started early. And like you said, I've had the fortune to be one that um, really sought adventure, and sort of, and it started, like, I graduated high school from Crow Del Mar in 1998, and I jumped on Fish tour. So Fish, as a psychedelic jam band,
No
the
way.
pro and it was like, whoa, cool. I'm now, I went all the way to the gorge in Washington for literally my first show, and I was like, whoa, this is insane, right? Just to be in a new community, a new culture, again, coming back to the culture and the and the ecology of seeing how things can be very different if we choose to put our energies and focus in various ways. So, but that was one of, again, first turning on was at home. Second turning on was going on the road. The next turning on was, really going to college and finding like-minded people, that weren't just from the same neighborhood, but like-minded people from all over the country that stood for something in common. Again, we were young hippies and we cared about the environment, and we were surfers and music and all that stuff. And so I found community and camaraderie that way. Um,
Mm.
and those people inspired me to want to keep hitting the road.
Mm.
And so I'm just kind of telling the origin story of which makes the Ecology Center it. And on that journey, I would spend summers hitchhiking around Hawaii and living on farms and meeting great people and hearing great stories and learning great things. Experience, right? Like being in the world.
Yeah.
Um, and I spent about 10 years living and breathing and learning in a global context. Um,
Mm,
and agriculture, through college, one of the things I picked up was my love of growing food, and and in that, loved most importantly the art of growing the food, but the culture and the community that surrounded the agrarian community was like
mm,
was such magic for me because I didn't come from that. It was new. Um, and so I spent a lot of my time living and breathing around these agrarian communities, many of them indigenous communities that have lived in this way of life of being close to the land and close to one another for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so those are just formative moments for me that kind of helped um, helped create my point of view, and
mm,
hone in my craft. I kept honing in my craft. That's the context. And then my craft was as an ecological designer, which is kind of my specialty, is learning how do we take traditional ecological knowledge, which is like indigenous wisdom, and how do we pair the needs of the modern human with the
mm.
reality of the environment, like with the ecology. So that's probably a lot of complexity that I'm sharing, but ultimately my pursuit has been how do I design human settlements, whether it's a farm, whether it's a backyard, whether it's a neighborhood, a boutique hotel. I've done all of these different things at various scales that live in harmony with nature and ultimately the greater community around it. And so the Ecology
Mm.
Center is just an expression of that. And so that's been our design challenge. Like you said, for 18 years after kind of the tour of duty of 10 years of being in the world and prototyping these ideas to come home to an empty historic farmhouse in San Juan Capistrano and a dirt lot. It was something it really, and so I'll just pause there because that was sort of like a bit of my origin story into, um, I guess the birthing of this organization.
That's so cool. Dang, man. Yeah, when you were talking about jumping into a new community from say Newport Beach, like I had the same experience. Like I went to Point Loma for school, and as a surfer is what attracted me to that zone. And then I grew up eating really well. My mom was a great cook, and I was like, I'm not going to eat mac and cheese, with these, with my roommates and that kind of thing. And so it took me down to OB to the farmer's market, and I was like, wow, you can get a piece of ahi tuna for like $8 and a head of broccoli and some brown rice, and you've got like an epic meal for less than $10. And that kind of launched me into this like curiosity of food. I loved cooking, and then when my wife and I got married, we spent our first year in New Zealand doing woofing, and we worked on at the Kawanga Institute, which was like a seeds. It's kind of like the Ecology Center, but on a smaller scale for seed, mostly seed saving focus for heritage seed. And we took a permaculture course down there, and it really just like blew our minds of like coming from the concrete jungle and then going like, wow, this whole agrarian world exists. And I remember coming back from that experience. I think the first time I met you, my brother-in-law introduced us, and I think it was like 2009 or 10, went to the farm, and I don't think you guys had access to the full 28
Mm-hmm.
acres you have now. It was just, I think you were like walking it and dreaming about, could we
Mm-hmm.
have this maybe one day? But I remember coming back from that experience from New Zealand being like, I want to figure out a way to how to have this as a lifestyle or like to work, like be a job. And I think I remember you just being like, yeah, man, like there ain't no job here, but like there's like this is the dream, like this is what we'd love to have happen.
Yeah.
And I had a kid on the way and all these things. So I was like, I got to put food on the table. But it was interesting. That was like a cool moment where like I chose to go in one direction, like for whatever, for better, for worse. And you chose to sort of stay the course with the vision that you had and the experience and point of view that you had over the last 10 years. And that's really, I'm just really curious about that time where it's like, because that takes courage to be like, I see something here. Like I mean, at the time, did you see like a 20-year project, like spanning out in front of you, or like at that time, how are you holding vision, and what was coming back from that 10 years and then having like a possible opportunity to go create something in San Juan Capistrano? How are you holding that?
Yeah, that's good reflection, Seth. And I guess to answer your question, No, I couldn't see 20 years. I was only 28 years old.
Yeah.
I don't, I could see 10, you know, and I'd only had that life experience enough to know so much.
Yeah.
And with that said, you know, one of my projects in college, so years before the Ecology Center, was designing an education center that, that had a large scope that wasn't the Ecology Center, but I was designing at a large scale in my
Yeah.
early 20s to think about building an educational center that had gravity and had all of the basic elements of an institution. So I could see at both levels, but practically speaking, you know, back in 2010, say when I met you, um, it was a very instinctual moment, you know, and by and large, that's kind of where I like to operate, you know, while channeling vision. But realistic back then, it was a chop wood, carry water type of thing, which is, you know, I had nothing to lose, for one,
Yeah.
right? I'm 28 years old. I'm throwing seeds out, basically, literally, figuratively, and literally into the universe to see what can manifest.
Mm.
And and people started showing up, and the generosity of our community was coming, and the programming was sticking. And so, like any ecosystem development, it goes from a blank slate, like literally a clear cutted forest. How do you build it back up to a mature ecosystem? It
Mm.
takes a series of steps. It's succession. And as humans and permaculture designers, we can accelerate succession. We can take that normal 250-year-old process and turn it into 25. Right?
Hmm.
We can put all the pieces together. But I was early on in the succession when I met you, and so um, that's fun to see, to reflect on, because obviously that was like the analogy is like back then, you know, the Ecology Center was like a grain of sand, or like a, you know, just like a really beautiful corn kernel.
Mm.
Now it's significantly larger. You know, we have over 100 employees here, Seth, and it's 100,000 visitors a year, and it's a village. It's manifested in really ways that I could have never imagined in 2010, to be honest.
Dang, that's insane. I'm curious, like, what were some of the big like leaps of faith that like you had to jump over in order to like to create what we're seeing today? I mean, like that it doesn't just happen overnight. I'm curious, like, because like just even as a farmer sow seed, like they're not it's not nothing's for sure that it's going to work. Like so, it's like I'm curious, what were some of the yeah, what were some of those leaps of faith that you feel like you and the team had to really weather to get through?
Yeah, I mean, my worldview is, and I set the context for it early on, which is really about adventure, um,
Mm,
and
cool.
discovery, which is you know, a little bit of danger is okay. You know, a little bit of mystery is what we're seeking.
Mm,
Um, and so I guess I've never had the expectation that I had. I knew what was going to happen, and I felt okay with that. So I had built the nervous system and the reference point, which is I had great mentors,
mm,
both in understanding patterns and nature, to understand how nature works, but also seeing great role models in front of me that could show me how to be a wizard, how to work in harmony and seek the impossible and make it visible. You
mm,
know, and so I guess that's what comes to me, Seth, is that this is all just a journey with no destination. Life,
yeah,
a project, you know, you name it. To me, that's kind of that's been my general experience. Um,
yeah.
so it was so in a way that gets us a little bit. Maybe that gives us. For me, it gave me the ability to not bring as much concern or worry or insecurity, because I didn't need to know what was going to be happening down the road.
Mm,
Right. And now, so that was for sure true in my 20s, right? I just had to be honest and authentic in my current reality, so that, and intelligent enough to put the pieces together so that synergies can develop to the best of our ability, and not everything sticks, right? So you got to play with a few different types of elements. But then, and I could potentially give you some examples, but then now that the ecosystem is much more complex and much more resilient, it's a whole different type of reality, right? Where we still don't even know don't have to design for the next 10 years, but we can cast vision for it and then step into today and then take those meaningful steps forward.
Yeah. It's cool. I was thinking about like, I, I don't think I developed that sense of adventure or that longing for adventure until maybe my 30s. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like, the going on surf trips and that kind of thing was definitely a sense of adventure. But like, when it came to like seeing life as an adventure, like I don't think I grasped that until later in life, and letting some of the worry and the fear of failing like just kind of like, hey, that's part of the adventure. I'm curious, like who did you have as mentors or people that taught you, or maybe even just experiences that really like helped you see life as an adventure in your early 20s, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go pitch to the San Juan Capistrano city that like my vision and this is what I want to do, and like I don't care if it fails, or like I'm wondering like what was the substance or the starting points for that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, so much. I got a lot of from early on from my family. I think genetically, like my parents are all entrepreneurs. Um, so that's obviously a big help. My parents they have all had their own businesses, and I have a long lineage of entrepreneurs and artists in my family. So I feel like so much came from that, and then you can pair that with my leaping out into the world, hitchhiking or in various places, traveling, adventuring, learning, being, kind of shored me up. And then I also was building knowledge and capacity in the subject matter. So all of those, I think, added to, um, who I am, right? As someone that's, enthusiastic and hardworking and, got a vision and wants to make it work.
Yeah. Well, I almost hear like layers of confidence. Like, hey, I've been on the side of the road hitchhiking, and someone picked me up. Like it worked out. It was okay. Like, so I can go pitch to San Juan Capistrano. It's gonna be fine. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, like, what are you guys, as you're forging into like 18 years with the Ecology Center now, like, and I'm just curious, like, where is that sense of adventure for you right now? Like, as you're leading, like, you're in your 40s, right? So I'm wondering, like, as you think about adventure, what does adventure look like for you? Like, kind of some of these unknown roads that are in front of you.
I mean, I honestly feel like we're just getting started, Seth.
Yeah.
Like literally, like the platform is growing strong. The community's participating. I mean, so like you said, we had a little 1 acre dirt lot when we started that turned into a really beautiful ecosystem.
Mm.
7 years ago, the city gave us the 28-acre farm, of which we've turned into this incredible village, the farm at the heart of it. Um, and that was kind of like the first next big mission, was build the model of the change that we are seeking for our
Mm.
children. And then now it's really about how do we expand that ripple effect? How do we bring, hundreds of thousands of children through these conversations, both on the farm and off the farm? How do we
Mm.
replicate the agriculture, which is that we all eat and we want to get back to the land? We're now building a series of market gardens and training farmers, and real long term, over the next generations, is transforming Orange County again back into an agricultural literate environment, right?
Mm.
And just a couple seeds to plant there, but we feel like we're trying to swing at the bioregional level, which means like the ecological geography of Southern California, that we want to work in concert with individuals and organizations, as many as we can, to start growing the consciousness and start shifting the culture.
Mm.
And so there's an endless amount of opportunity and work ahead. And I mentioned a couple. I can mention a couple of things that we're endeavoring into, but that is the big picture.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So like, uh, I think you guys had like you have some locations in, is it Encinitas or Carlsbad, kind of in that zone, and then are you guys coming into like the Costa Mesa area? Like, are you actually looking for new sites to replicate, or is it more like we're looking for partners that are already on the ground and we're looking to see how we can partner? Or how's that?
Yeah, I
taking
mean, all,
shape?
all of the above. We've designed a handful of farms from Anaheim to Encinitas, and those are being operated by those that we've trained and to run those as theirs. So,
Okay.
but we are this year. We're in this early summer. We're going to be launching the next satellite for the Ecology Center. It's actually in San Juan Capistrano. It's a
Okay. Cool.
2 acre market garden as a farm incubator and a replication site. So yeah, we're just opening that door, Seth, if we had to build the model of which we're still actively pursuing here in the mothership, as we call it in San Juan, and now seeking partnerships and opportunities over the decade ahead to transform other landscapes and other communities.
That's cool. I don't know if this is like not good to talk about on this show. We can cut it out if we need to. But I was just curious, like when you guys are training the next generation of new farmers, like is there actually like a living wage they can make from adopting this lifestyle, or is it really also dependent on donors to like really buffet and support this space? Like how I just super curious about the financials
Yeah.
of like how.
Yeah, no, that's all, all of the above. All of the above. We're a nonprofit organization, so philanthropy supports the educational programming, the built environment, the infrastructure, a lot of these important things, and we couldn't do it without the generosity of our community.
Yeah.
And with that said, we also are on the front end of this regenerative organic certification, which is about ecology, uh, um, and living wage standards for our farmers. And so we're
Yeah.
very proud to pay our farmers living wages.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of our model. So for example, like Lenovia as a satellite, philanthropy, which is ultimately and this is philanthropy and the contributions of the city of San Juan Capistrano birthed the farm, and then there's partnership that will pay the living wages for a farmer, which is more or less like 3 or 4 farmers to make a living, a good, honest living in Orange County, growing vegetables, serving their community. So it's a yes and.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. That's yeah. That's cool. Yeah. It's yeah, it seems like it's adapting to the space as you mentioned earlier. It's like, hey, like it ain't cheap to live here, and like this is needed. So how do we pull this off? That's really cool.
it's exactly what's needed. Yeah, and then what our core values are care for the earth, care for the planet, and share our surplus. And so we live in a community where there is surplus. So it's
Mm,
designers of like it's in our best interest to pull in community, and some community are going to come and they're going to participate in various ways. But there are those in our geography and quite frankly most places where there's surplus available for us if we put those pieces together, and
mm,
that's a beautiful part of the architecture of community. Um,
mm. I love that.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That like, yeah, we do live in a culture of surplus here, and it takes shape in all sorts of different ways. And so, how do we share the surplus? That's really cool.
yeah,
If you were like, I'm thinking of like if every city, like say Orange County, I think it's what 32 cities or 34 cities, something like that. Like it'd be incredible. Like if every city had like an ecology center, you know, I mean, that would be insane. Like, because I mean, like, is that like a reality? Do you think like something like that could
absolutely.
happen?
Absolutely. Again, it just takes partnership. It takes an individual from that community that wants to stand up for the community. So it's not me saving the day. It's who lives in Costa Mesa that's fired up, because that person's
Yeah.
got a whole network of people that are fired up, and that network
Mm,
bring in all the resources it needs to nourish itself. Right. So that's a little bit of like what our mission is teaching us to fish, not to give everyone the fish. So
yeah.
that's where it's a longer arc of the journey, which is also in our best interest, which is that this takes time, but it does build resiliency over time. So
Yeah.
yes, I love that vision, and I will do anything in my means to help support that vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how does somebody, if someone's interested in that vision, they're like, I want this in my town, like, how do they, what are the entry points that start to kind of roll that? Obviously, there's the excitement and passion, but then I would imagine, like, you've dropped a lot of seeds around, like, there's ways we think about this and ways and like methodologies and how does one kind of like enter into that space?
I mean, there's probably no linear path, of course, but and I'm curious. I don't have the answer. I'll just be honest with that. Outside of, I'm eager to help and support, and so one is learning methodology, like learning one is what is your magic, and how does that align with building proficiency so you can serve with purpose.
Mm,
So for my t- I learned how to grow vegetables. I learned how to design ecosystems. I learned how to do these things, and then I started learning other elements. But so for in that, if that's someone's interest of like I want to nourish my community, well then I would invite them down to the Ecology Center and let's have a conversation. We do farm apprenticeships here, for example. We can teach you how to farm. We can have
mhm,
conversations to support you around designing ecosystems. We do that for school districts. We do that for cities. We're doing that for other organizations.
mm.
So again, it's all of this. I think is all seeking to be. I don't have a structured plan at this point. You're not at that point of our journey yet to have like. I'm glad you asked. I got the manual right here. Like training starts next Friday. Like that's, but we're gonna get there. We're just not there.
There you are. No, that's cool. Well, obviously you've done something beautifully. I mean, it's amazing. Like, and it's
Yeah.
awesome to see the gosh, it's so cool, man. Like the restaurant, and I mean, my wife and I went for my birthday to one of those farm to table experiences, and it was just like the people we got to sit with were so awesome. Never met them in our life, but had one of the most beautiful dinners. Ended up hanging out with them after the dinner. I mean, it was just so cool, and the scene that's set, the table that's set, the hanging halibut carcasses over the smoke. I mean, like it's not just like done well; it's like really well done, you know. So it's cool to see. And I guess I'm curious about that, like how you, because like it almost seems like there's like this curation architect, but I imagine it's not just like one person's vision that's like, hey, like really, it's got to be this, and the halibuts have to be hanging here, and all these things. It's like very, I would imagine it's like just getting, like you said, a bunch of people with different magic together and seeing what alchemy happens. But like just curious, how does that work? How do you guys create experiences like that?
I think we just start with intention and we follow it with values. That would be like my high level. I speak at, I'm like curious if this conversation's landing at all because I feel like I'm at the 10,000 foot level.
It's all good. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we set the intention and then we bring in people that can sit with the values. And
Mm,
so this isn't a magazine. This isn't a photo shoot. This isn't anything that you may think it is. This is just, honestly, we're just rolling up our sleeves doing the work. And so it adds up day after day into something that has meaning, in my opinion. So I thank you for validating that. But yeah, this isn't this isn't popular culture. This isn't like we're not doing this for something else. We're just being authentic. And so, uh,
yeah.
it doesn't mean that we get it right every time. I'm not there, clearly like, but we have the intention to show up with grace and cleanliness and beauty and taste and all of these things. Um, and we, thank goodness we've done hundreds of dinners and we'll do hundreds more.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're grateful for the opportunity to serve.
That's cool, man. Yeah. Oh, it's so good, man. Thank you so much for just taking the time to just chat a bit.
Oh,
I just want to acknowledge and affirm you guys for all you're doing. It's such a it breathes so much beauty and life like into the community, and not and we're 4 cities, 5 cities over, and really just benefiting from it. So thank you guys so much for the work you're doing. So
yeah.
so needed.
Thank you for the opportunity to share, Seth. I mean, I, I'm I'm grateful every day. I get to do what I love, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, man. It shows. It shows. Cool, brother. Well, thank you so much. Good to be with you.
Much love, bud. Hit me up anytime.